As I made my way back across the lawn to my house, the night air felt cooler, a relief from the stifling warmth of the garage. The sky was a dark velvet, studded with stars that twinkled like distant beacons. I paused for a moment, taking in the scene, the quiet suburban street now seeming like the backdrop to a story that was still unfolding. The streetlights cast long shadows, and the crickets resumed their evening chorus, filling the silence with their rhythmic song. Back inside, I found myself unable to settle. I paced the living room, the events of the night replaying in my mind like a movie on loop. Lisa's request, the trust she placed in me, and the unexpected bond that had formed between us. It was all so surreal and yet undeniably real. I sank into the couch, the fabric cool against my skin, and tried to process everything that had happened. Lisa's brother, whose name I eventually learned was Jason, had gotten himself tangled in a situation that was far more complex than I had initially understood. It involved debts, some unsavory characters who were less than forgiving, and a series of poor decisions that had snowballed into a full-blown crisis. Lisa had been trying to help him from the shadows, using her resourcefulness and connections to shield him from the worst of it. But it had reached a point where she could no longer manage alone, and that's where I came in. The following day, I awoke with a sense of purpose that had been absent from my life for far too long. The routine of my day job, with its endless cycle of claims and forms, seemed distant, almost trivial in comparison to what I was now involved in. I found myself looking forward to the end of the workday, eager to join Lisa in our efforts to help Jason. Throughout the week, Lisa and I met in secret, using her garage as our base of operations. It became a sanctuary of sorts, a place where we could speak freely and plan without fear of being overheard. The garage, with its clutter and chaos, transformed into a war room, each tool and rag taking on new significance as we pieced together a strategy. Our evenings were spent poring over notes and maps, making calls to people Lisa trusted, and devising ways to keep Jason safe while we worked on a long-term solution. It was a delicate dance, balancing the urgency of the situation with the need for caution. Lisa was a natural leader, her mechanical mind adept at problem-solving, and I found myself relying on her instincts more than I cared to admit. Despite the seriousness of our mission, there were moments of levity, brief interludes where we allowed ourselves to laugh and share stories from our pasts. I learned more about Lisa during those nights than I had in all the years we'd been neighbors. She had an infectious laugh, a sound that seemed to fill the room with warmth, and a way of seeing the world that was both pragmatic and hopeful. One evening, as we took a break from our planning, Lisa shared a story from her childhood, a memory of her and Jason playing in the woods behind their house. "He was always the adventurous one," she said, a fond smile on her lips. "I used to follow him on these wild expeditions, convinced we were discovering new worlds." Her eyes softened, the memory tinged with nostalgia. "I guess I've been trying to protect him ever since." I nodded, understanding more than I could express. There was something profoundly human about the way Lisa cared for her brother, a fierce loyalty that resonated with me. It was a reminder that life was about more than just surviving. It was about the connections we forged and the lengths we would go to for those we loved. Our plan came together gradually, a patchwork of ideas and contingencies that we hoped would be enough to extricate Jason from his predicament. There were setbacks, moments when it seemed like everything would unravel, but we persevered, driven by a shared determination that refused to be extinguished. On the day of the plan's execution, the air was thick with tension, the anticipation almost palpable. Lisa and I met early, reviewing the details one last time before setting things in motion. Jason was nervous, his usual restless energy amplified by the gravity of the situation. But he was also hopeful, that hope ignited by the support of his sister and the unexpected ally he'd found in me. The hours passed in a blur, a whirlwind of activity and emotion as we navigated the complexities of Jason's escape. There were tense moments, close calls that left us breathless and shaken, but we pressed on, fueled by the promise of freedom on the other side. When it was finally over, when Jason was safe and the danger had passed, the relief was overwhelming. It was as if a great weight had been lifted, leaving us all a little dazed by the sudden lightness. We gathered in Lisa's garage, the space that had become our haven, and allowed ourselves a moment to breathe, to celebrate the victory we'd fought so hard to achieve. Lisa's gratitude was a tangible thing, a warmth that enveloped me as she thanked me for my help. But it was more than just gratitude. It was a recognition of the bond that had formed between us, a connection forged in the crucible of crisis and tempered by trust. We stood together, the silence between us rich with unspoken words, and I knew that something fundamental had shifted. The line we'd been towing had blurred, the boundaries of our relationship expanding to encompass something new and uncharted. In the days that followed, life began to settle back into its familiar rhythms, the chaos of the past weeks gradually fading into memory. But there was a new element to my routine, a sense of possibility that hadn't existed before. Lisa and I continued to see each other, our interactions now infused with a deeper understanding and a hint of anticipation for what the future might hold. We spent evenings talking, exploring the boundaries of our newfound connection, and discovering the subtle nuances of each other's personalities. Lisa was an enigma, a blend of strength and vulnerability that fascinated me. She was passionate about her work, her eyes lighting up as she spoke of engines and machinery with a fervor that was contagious. I found myself drawn to her in ways I hadn't anticipated, the admiration I'd long held for her evolving into something more. For Lisa, I was a grounding presence, a steady force in her life that provided a sense of stability amidst the unpredictability of her world. She appreciated my calm demeanor, the way I listened without judgment and offered support without expectation. Our friendship deepened, the foundation we'd built during the crisis serving as a solid base for whatever came next. There were moments of uncertainty, times when the path forward seemed unclear, but we navigated them together, each step a testament to the trust we'd cultivated. We were two people, bound by circumstance and choice, daring to explore the possibilities of what we could become. And so, as the days turned into weeks, a new chapter unfolded, one that promised adventure and growth, challenges and triumphs. It was a journey neither of us had planned, but one we embraced with open hearts and a shared sense of purpose. The future was an open road, stretching out before us with all its twists and turns, and we were ready to face it together, come what may. In the end, it wasn't just about helping Jason or solving a problem. It was about discovering the strength of connection and the power of trust, about finding hope and possibility in the most unexpected of places. And for that, I was profoundly grateful.